Actually, 1984, there were a group of us who were working to plan to create the women's press. And in doing that, we would talk to a lot of people who knew how to do things around the publishing world, which we didn't exactly. And they all said, "Oh, that's a nice idea, but it'll never work." Okay. So we like to remember that advice that we got from those in the know of how to create a newspaper. And for the younger ones of you in the audience, this was a time when there was no internet, there was no social media, there were just the daily papers and the daily newscasts locally and nationally. At that point, Glenda Martin and I were both busy in careers as educators, and we were already middle-aged at that point. Yet we had a dream of doing something new, creating a newspaper that would tell women's stories, that would present news of what was happening with women, what women were doing, what the meaning for women was of what was going on in the male smoky closed rooms kind of thing. And we were driven by our recognition that the world badly needed the perspectives and the wisdom of women. And the world wasn't getting it. There was so much going on that was getting no attention beyond the people involved. Everywhere we looked, we saw that the contributions women were striving to make were being restricted, put down, ignored. Women's voices were silenced in countless ways. And we wanted to play a role in helping to break those silences. And with a group of stalwart and talented co-dreamers, we set off on a year of planning to see what would become Minnesota Women's Press. Sorry, I just wanted to point out to you, Kathy and Norma, you just met. Other people from the early days of the Women's Press are here, and it's been a wonderful treat to connect and catch up. Amy Gage is here, Michelle, Rebecca, Lynn Crosby. We spent a year planning, so 1984 to 85, and it was big, heavy work. We were creating two new things at once. One, a new newspaper, and two, a model for a mission-driven feminist business. And both of those were taxing, and we had endless decisions to make and lots to learn, and it was a very busy year, even though we were all doing our other lives at the same time. Looking back there and seeing Kathy, I remember her young daughter at the time playing under my dining room table, which was our office for that year, and we were having meetings, and there was children around as well. Then in April 1985, the first issue of the Women's Press rolled off the presses. 30,000, I think, although I've seen other numbers and I can't remember that far back, were distributed to hundreds of sites around the Twin Cities. And we all have this memory of the day the newspapers came and this giant truck from the printer came up my little alley because we didn't know what to do with them, so we had to put them in the garage. And they came up, and it was a huge truck, and it seemed like they were unloading bundles of papers forever. And then, of course, the next trick was how to get them to where people will find them. That was just one of the kinds of things that we were dealing with. We were so excited, and also a little trepidatious, a little apprehensive. Could we really make this work? We'd said to the world, some of whom were listening, we think women's words are important and can make a difference in the world, and we're going to get them out there to you. Yes. Thinking about that and being aware of the challenges of trying to do that, I said, I hoped we could last a year. Glenda said, well, we have to last at least 10 years. And now, 40 years later, Minnesota Women's Press is still here. still doing incredible work and taking on all kinds of interesting new challenges. And you're here, and that's very satisfying to see that this many people, and many more, thousands more I know who aren't here, find it important that this publication is still strong. And over these 40 years, that journey has continued because of the people who've been involved through all the stages of this company and this publication. Dedicated, energetic, imaginative, creative women who have signed on to the mission. The faithful readers, the dedicated staff and freelancers and interns, committed advertisers, allies in all arenas around the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So as I tell you this origin story, I'm thinking about legacy because that's our theme for this part of the evening. And I know that Glenda and I could dream as we did because of the legacy we inherited from generations of women before us. Women who pushed boundaries, who worked for justice, who told their stories, who dreamed of a better world. And through their legacy, their gift to us, these women who would never see the women's press themselves helped shape what it became. And that's the way it is. The people that start, if you think about a story, when does your story start? Does it start the day you were born? No. Does it start the day with the meeting of your parents and how that was? Does it start with your grandmother and the trouble she lived through? You can go back and back, and we're all connected in that chain of relationships and of lives lived. So, and as the people that we didn't know personally, the people from the past whose legacy of courage and hard work and success helped shape what the women's press we became and what the women's press became, and we like to think that our efforts in creating the women's press became the legacy that new leaders of the press made their own and expanded upon. Each new generation of people who've worked and committed to the women's press have expanded and strengthened that endeavor. Kathy and Norma, as Mickey said, who took up the publishing reins from us, kept Minnesota Women's Press alive in perilous economic times. We wouldn't be here without the very hard and savvy work they did. And they made the transition from a newspaper to a magazine. Mickey, now the current publisher, has expanded the reach of the business and created new communities of readers and activists all over the state. This says a note about taglines. I think you can tell a lot about how this legacy and evolution has happened by looking at the taglines that we used. The very first tagline for the women's press that we came up with was, "A woman's place is in the news." And we also had, Glenda and I looked in old closets to find t-shirts from the past, and Glenda's wearing one that says, "Feminist at Work, Minnesota Women's Press." And we thought those were very audacious at the time, okay? But the ante kept getting upped on the audacity schedule. Norma and Kathy came up with the tagline, "Changing the universe through women's stories." I got it backwards, right? Is that it? Changing the universe through women's stories. Not Minnesota, not the US, the universe. And I thought that was good. That was very audacious. And now, how can we beat badass energy from Mickey here? So thinking about lessons that we've learned from our Minnesota Women's Press adventure, especially in these fraught times, and they seem now more important than ever, and they're simple, but most good things are. One is, if we need or want something that doesn't yet exist, let's think about making it ourselves. Don't wait for others to do it for us, okay? Women with shared vision who work together create their own power, and they use it. They learn how to use it together. Change doesn't happen without taking risks. We all know that, and it's scary, but that's part of building our strength. And being able to do work that is mission-driven, that has a purpose, that makes things better, that tries to make the world better, is a gift. And Glenda and I know that the task we had as publishers remains a task personally as well. I mean, you don't grow out of these responsibilities. To define ourselves and our world in our own terms, to speak up and speak out, to share our beliefs and dreams with others. So when it's hard to feel hopeful, as it is now, we remind ourselves that transforming the culture has always been an ongoing and heroic struggle. And getting that darn patriarchy smashed, we thought maybe we'd be part of the group that made that happen. And we can't claim that, but it is the heroism of the women and men who are working to support women's stories and make the world better. So Glenda and I say thank the goddess for all the heroes who've chosen to be part of Minnesota Women's Press over the years, and all of you in this room. Thank you.
That's it. We can go home.